Hi, my name is Nikki Lurzak. I'm the Instructional Services Librarian at Genesee Community College, and this is Chicago Citation Style Short Notes. What are short notes? Short notes are what you use for multiple citations from the same source, only after your source has been fully cited the first time you use it. Then you can use a short note each time after that you refer back to that same source again. So the first time out, you've always got to do a full footnote. There's our full footnote. If you've watched the other Chicago Citation Style tutorial, you will recognize that first one. And there is a short note for that book. The author's name is shortened to just her last name. Even though this is a note, we're not reversing last name and then first name instead. All we're going with is our last name. The shortened title. You'll notice that our book title was The Columbia Guide to American Indians of the Northeast. When you make a shortened title, you remove those initial articles like a, and, or the, and you just go with what is enough to identify your item. If you had more than one book that started Columbia Guide, you would have to include as many words as were necessary so that you knew which Columbia Guide you were referring to. And finally, for a footnote, you include the specific location or the page number that your note comes from. Short notes have this other thing that comes with them, the ibid. So what is an ibid? Ibid is a Latin word meaning in the same place. It's from the larger word ibidem. And you can only use ibid when what you are doing is referring to the source that came immediately before. So if I want to include a footnote and use the word ibid, the ibid is going to point to my immediately preceding note. And if it is exactly from the same place, like even the same page, then all you need is that word ibid. If it helps, maybe you want to think of it this way. First comes your full citation. And then if you want to use an ibid, if your second note is pointing to that first note, then you can use ibid. So ibid follows behind. Let's take a look at a footnote list using a combination of short notes, ibids, and of course full notes for books. These are all going to be book examples. We're going to start off. Our very first note is always a full note. Here is my book the first time I am going to refer to it. I have a choice. And I could use a short note as the next note after my item. I have a choice. I could do a short note. I could do an ibid. In this case, I chose to go with a short note. So you'll notice it's not all the details of the first, but it refers back to it. If I wanted to, I could include an ibid if my third note, as it is in this case, is still coming from the Bragdon book. So I'm still using the same resource here. And in fact, this third note is even coming from the same page, page 25. I'm just going to say ibid because it is the same resource. Now I'm going to introduce something new. Here is a second book written by Boatwright, Gargola, and Talbert. This is a new resource. At this point, when my fifth note also refers exactly to my fourth note, same page and everything, I'm just going to hop straight to an ibid. I could have done a short note like number 2 with just last name and the shortened title, but I chose ibid. It is a choice. You can do either the short note or an ibid. It's whatever you'd prefer. My next two quotes, you'll notice I'm bouncing back and forth, and this often happens in a paper. You find yourself bouncing between your various resources. Be careful. Because I interrupted the Bragdon book, right? I cited or I made a note from my Bragdon book for number 1, for number 2, and number 3, but then number 4 came from a new book. I can't just take number 6 and make it an ibid and have that refer back to the Bragdon book, because ibid only ever points back to that most recent previous full note or short note. So ibid on number 6 would refer back to the Boatwright, Gargola, and Talbert book. So I have to use a short note to say specifically which item am I referring to. And then, because now I've interrupted the Boatwright book, I have to do a short note for it because I've noted it from my 7th footnote. That's what that means. The short notes are necessary if you are going to hop back and forth so that we can keep things straight. You can't just ibid everybody. You need to make sure that the ibid points to the right place. My 8th footnote here refers back to the Boatwright, Gargola, and Talbert books. Since that was number 7, my ibid points to that from number 8. When you're doing articles, they are slightly different and you have some choices. So you can see the number 1 on this list is a full footnote for a journal article for an article that was found through JSTOR. The short note, if you choose to use a short note for your article, you have a choice. Just like the book, you still have to do the author's last name, so we start with Kaiser. And then you can choose either to do a shortened title, like the book. In this case, because it's an article, it has to be in quotation marks. And again, I'm capitalizing the words there, so Austrian Committee. And then the page number of my note. Or you could, instead of the title, include the journal title and the volume number with a colon before the page number. You have a choice when you're doing a short note for an article. Both of them will include an author and both of them will include the page number, but it's your choice if you want to go with the shortened article title or if you'd like to use the name of the journal and the volume number. Now we're going to take a look at a list full of short notes, full notes, and IBIDs for some articles. I start off, my first article on my list is a full note. It's the first time I've used it, and the first time you use anything, it always has to be a full note. Number 2 refers back to the Cone article, and it's on a different page. I need to include the page number. My first article note comes from 716, my second one from the next page, so I have to include the page number. And now I have a different article. So again, I've got to do a full citation or a full note for that article. And it is your choice. Remember, you can choose to use an IBID or you can choose to use a short note. Here is a short note for the third footnote using the shortened article title version. And here is a short note for the first article on my list using the journal title and volume version. Even though I'm showing them here for demonstration purposes, you should not mix and match between using shortened titles or using journal names and volumes. Pick one format and just stick with it for your entire paper so that it's not confusing to someone who's trying to understand what you're doing. Number 6 and 7 are notes that refer back to the Cone article. Remember, the IBID is going to point to the one directly before it, so since they are both IBIDs, they have to refer to number 5 in this case. I hope you have a better understanding of using full, short notes and IBIDs when you are doing your footnotes in Chicago Style. If you have any questions about using short notes and IBID or creating footnotes for books and articles, please do not hesitate to get in touch with a librarian, either in person or through our resources on the Ask a Librarian page of the library's homepage.